Hey, this is Steve. I want to just give a quick overview of a small micro size N scale layout that I recently completed with my 4-year-old son. We built a small 14 by 18 inch N scale layout and basically just a simple loop of track. There is no turnouts involved. It does contain a small mine scene as well as a tunnel, actually 2 tunnels, but for the most part, just really more of a simple display layout that's very small in size, and this gave an opportunity to try out some different scenery techniques and so forth. But again, this is a very small layout. The powering of it is very simple. It is powered by a simple Radio Shack wall wart type of power supply that has a variable voltage output between 3 and 12 volts, which you can use to control the speed, and just simple on-off and direction toggles on the front of the layout that allow you to control the direction and turn the layout on and off. Otherwise, it's just sort of set a speed and pretty much leave it at that as the train runs. And I'll give a quick overview of the back side of the layout here, and then we'll turn the train on and see how it runs. And here is a view of the back of the layout. It does contain, after a short bridge, it does contain 2 tunnels. Both are on the order of 4 to 5 inches in length, so it is fairly easy to reach in and retrieve a car or an engine that may have derailed with the short tunnel lengths. And also does provide a nice little scene here with the train moving in and out from one tunnel into the other on the back side. Now, all the scenery and the entire layout in general is built using 2 small sheets of foam insulation board that I picked up at Home Depot, and essentially just caulked and layered together and then carved, and then on top of that was painted on a layer of plaster that provided a means for carving some of the rock work that you can see on the various mountain areas on the layout. Otherwise, everything is just essentially just the raw foam that has been painted over with ground foam added, and of course trees and so forth added on as well. Okay, here's an overview with the train itself running. The track on the layout is all Kato unit track. The curves are 6-inch radius or something approximate to that. I decided to go with the fixed radius Kato unit track on this layout because in the past on small micro layouts like this, I have used Atlas Code 55, which does look a little bit nicer, although with the Kato track ballasted and weathered, it does, I think, look quite nice, and it is not, exceedingly obvious that it is in fact Kato Unitrack by looking at it. But in the past, again, I have had problems just over time with expansion and contraction repeatedly over the course of days and months and years even, with more kinks developing near the rail joints that are closest to the curves, just there's so much outward pressure because of the sharp curves that the rail joints do tend to eventually develop more kinks. I've had problems with at least that happening over time, and so I decided to, in this scenario, go with the Kato track, since that won't be a problem in terms of the kinks developing just from the tight curves with the fixed radius platform of the track itself, helping to hold things in line a little bit better. Certainly with flex track, once you get beyond these really tight radius curves, doesn't usually present a problem with that so much, but when you're looking at curves on the order of 5 and 6 inches, it does become a little bit more difficult to maintain that constant radius curve, and you go just a hair below 5 or 6 inches in most cases, and you really can't get cars to run around those tight curves, and so maintaining that minimum is pretty important when you're dealing with curves that are this tight. But I have not had any problems with this layout in terms of any kind of real derailment problems. Everything has been running fine. Again, as long as I keep the train length pretty short and the car is pretty short, things do run pretty smoothly. Again, this is running just with a basic wall wart type power supply that I picked up from Radio Shack. It does allow me to select the voltage. I think currently I'm running this at 6 or 9 volts. I can't remember right now, but that gives you at least a decent running speed, and then I can change directions using the simple toggle here and run the train forward or backwards. And for the most part, it does work pretty well in that regard. Again, this is a simple loop, so there's not really much need for switching or things of that nature, and so just having a constant power supply does work pretty well. This is really designed to be sort of a small executive display type layout that can be put on the corner of a desk and run during the day and not have to really worry about messing around with it too much. And here's a view of the back side of the layout with the train running from one tunnel to the other. And again, it does provide a nice little small scene with the two tunnels close by and the train kind of popping out of one and going into the other. And again, the overall layout is roughly 14 by 18 inches, so there's a fair amount of scenes that are contained in this small space, and it was sort of a fun project to build. I did build it again with my 4-year-old son, and he helped to do most of the painting, and he planted most of the trees and so forth. And it was sort of a fun project to be involved with because it allowed you to basically put this entire layout on the kitchen table on a few sheets of newspaper. It wasn't really a big deal to make a mess that way, and you could essentially put the layout in an environment that was very easy for him to work on, and so it was sort of a fun project for us to work on together. Here's a close-up of the mine scene on the side of the layout. I did in fact just recently add a light to the inside of the layout, or the inside of the mine. The reason for that was not so much to provide nighttime illumination for the inside of the mine as much as it was to provide a way to determine whether or not the power was in fact on to the track. The light is wired to the track, or the same power goes to the track, and so if the light does go on, then there is in fact power to the track. And so if the engine is not running, you at least have confirmation whether or not the track is in fact powered. Since I did have an issue with that originally when I first wired this, I had an issue with the power supply I was using on the first or the first one that I tried to use, and it wasn't actually producing any output power. And so I was trying to figure out why that was, or why the train wasn't running. It was in fact the power supply not working. And so I decided to go ahead and add the light bulb inside the mine to provide that indication whether or not there's in fact power being supplied to the rails. And so it does at least give you a pretty quick look, and so you know that if the light is on, then the problem is likely with the engine and not with the track itself. And lastly, if you haven't ever worked on building a small micro layout, I would encourage you to do that. It is a fun project to undertake. It does give you the opportunity to work on some new ideas and techniques that maybe you can't really fit into your current existing layout, or maybe you don't really have space for an existing layout presently, and it does give you an opportunity to build something to a complete state relatively quickly in a small space. And it's very highly transportable. You can easily bring it with you if you're moving and that kind of thing. And it's just a fun way to try out new things in a short amount of time and produce a nice complete layout without spending much money, and again doing it very quickly. So with that, I'll leave you, and thanks again for watching. Bye.